This week on BSD Now, we're going to be sitting down with Jim Brown from the BSD Certification Group to talk about BSD exams. Following that, we're going to be showing you how to build an OpenBSD binary packages in bulk, kind of a la poudriere. There's also a boatload of news, and we got answers to your questions. All that's coming up right now on BSD Now, the place to be, Okay, BSD Now, episode 33, Certified Package Delivery, recorded April 16th, 2014. Hey, I'm your host, Chris Moore.
And I'm Alan Jude.
And we're glad to have you guys with us this week. We got another exciting show. There's still a lot of stuff to talk about, mop up from last week's huge security issues, but we got a lot of other headlines to do too, so we're going to get right into them here. First up, we got some BSD CAN news. I guess the schedule, speakers, and talks have been announced now.
Yes.
So, this year's BSD CAN is going to kick off May 14th in Ottawa, Canada. If you're not registered, you need to now.
Hurry up.
ASAP. Get there. It's going to be a great time. Huge conference. Lots of just BSD folks from everywhere. I'm trying to think. Even some of the guys from Japan come out.
Yep.
So people travel for this one.
Yes. This is definitely the biggest BSD conference in North America. And so, yeah, the Wednesday and Thursday, May 14th and 15th, are tutorials. So especially if you want to learn more about BSD, these are great. Small class kind of learn about stuff. So the first tutorial...
If you're a sysadmin, that's what you tell your boss to send you out to. Like, I need to go to this tutorial.
And then I might as well just stay for the weekend part too.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, well, while I'm here...
Yes.
Oh, hey, Dan just mentioned in chat too. Register this week, otherwise you get no t-shirt.
Yes.
So if you want to get the awesome t-shirt to take home, you need to register now.
Yes. It is always an awesome t-shirt too.
Yes.
So the first tutorial on the Wednesday is IPv6, taught by somebody that actually knows this stuff inside out. So it's awesome. And then the next one is Peter Hanstein teaching his building the network you need with PF.
Nice.
And this is the one we talked a little bit about last week, where he was asking for feedback from people that had taken it before, or people that were considering taking it. You know, what would they change, or what is it exactly you want to learn how to do in this, so that he could improve it. And then each evening, there's also a hackers lounge. There's an open space with lots of power, and everybody's hanging around working on interesting things. So if you don't even know what you want to work on, you just hang out there and you'll find something cool you can latch onto.
So day 2, we have another Peter Hanstein transition to OpenBSD 5.5
yes, there's
in the morning.
Quite a few changes there, so it'll be interesting to see what that's about. And then
sudo.
Yes, Michael W. Lucas will be giving a tutorial based on his awesome book about how you're actually doing sudo entirely wrong, and you need to stop that.
Hey, if you've been watching the show for a while, you'll recognize these names.
Exactly.
These are people we've interviewed, and you have a chance to meet them in person, you know, go grab a beer after the conference. I mean, it's a pretty cool experience, so you need to get out
Or,
there.
you know, if you bought that sudo book, you might be able to get it signed. And then...
so let's see. Day 2, what else we got?
Just in the evening, also, there's the registration pub. Because the conference starts on Friday, if you get in Thursday night, you can drop by the pub and get your t-shirt and all that fun stuff, and hang out with everybody and have fun. And also that night, there's a Puppet Birds of a Feather session and a doc sprint. In our interview with Drew last week, she mentioned those doc sprints. You know, if you want to get involved in docs and don't know where to start, come out to these, and we'll get you kickstarted with all the a rundown of the tools and how things work, and it works great. Or if you already know how to do that and you just want to get something reviewed or just collaborate, and you know, we're trying to work on the print edition, so there'll be lots of interesting stuff going on. So you should definitely check out the doc sprint. Or if you want to or currently use Puppet, there's a Birds of a Feather session where a bunch of people interested in Puppet can sit around and talk about it for a little while.
Looks like a lot of good stuff.
Yep.
I'm looking, they got looks like 3 full tracks on the actual speaking days.
Yes. So starting on Friday,
Too many,
all kinds of
almost
stuff.
too many things to mention,
Yes.
but lots of things.
Yeah.
Everything from NAND flash to capsicum
Yep.
to
Forensic
performance.
timestamp analysis of ZFS, building a software switch on FreeBSD, IPv6 transition mechanisms, MIPS, NAND, user space networking, BGP for spam filtering, Capsicum and Casper, making disk encryption faster, OpenBGPD, migrating from Linux to FreeBSD, shell scripts and commands, ARM, bmake, maintaining an internal fork of FreeBSD. If your company does something that you build on top of a BSD and you want to learn best practices for keeping up with head and stuff, somebody else who does that is giving a talk on that, and that's great. And again, there will be a doc sprint that night as well.
So day 2 of talks, we have everything from FreeBSD test suites to Matt Aarons will be there talking about OpenZFS again. We got introduction to FreeNAS development, ASLR and FreeBSD. There will be a chance to take the BSD certification exam as well. We're going to be talking to Jim for our interview today, Jim Brown of the BSD Cert. And he'll tell you all about that, but you have an opportunity to take that in person. So if you'd like to get certified, this is the place to do it.
And lots of other stuff too, making FreeBSD perform better as a guest in Zen, new dependency solvers for the package system. Chris is giving his talk about replication in boot environments and stuff on enhancing the way we make man pages. Everything you could think of is here. And then Dan has the closing session, which usually also includes a charity auction. If there's lots of interesting swag and like posters like Chris has in the back, usually stuff like that.
Yeah, that's where you get this kind of stuff.
It's limited supply, and we have a little auction for it, and all the money is donated to a charity. And again, there'll be a doc sprint and a hackers lounge basically every night.
And of course, as we've mentioned before, me and Alan will both be there in person. So if you're doing something cool in the BSD community or neat project, come on by and grab us. We'll be happy to interview you. We can talk about that and share that with the rest of the world.
And on the Sunday, there's some mildly organized tourist stuff. A bunch of people can meet up and check out the sites in Ottawa, which is the capital of Canada, and lots of historic stuff there. But also the BSD Certification Group is doing a beta test of their BSD professional exam, which is the hands-on one that takes place in a lab. So they're looking for volunteers to take the beta. And that also, I think, if I remember correctly, entitles you to a discount when you take the actual exam later on when it comes out.
Well, cool. So again, try and register this week. Get registered in time to get your T-shirt, and we'll look forward to seeing you out in Canada. And gosh, what is that, about 4 weeks now? 3-4 weeks?
Yeah,
so it's coming up.
Exactly 1 month from today, I think.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, next up, speaking of conferences, we have some information on New York City BSD Con that was held recently. And I guess the talks have been uploaded now, so you can actually go back and watch some of those.
Yes, the BSD TV YouTube channel has a bunch more of the talks uploaded, including Jeff Rizzo's talk about releasing NetBSD, how they managed to release it for so many architectures in such a short amount of time. Drew has her overview of all the different ZFS management tools that you find in FreeNAS and PCBSD and how they're making it easier for people to use ZFS. Scott Long has the Netflix talk, and Michael Lucas has an interesting talk just about BSD in general and how it can break barriers and why BSD and the power of it is so powerful and useful. And it was a really good talk.
Cool. Yeah. Okay, next up we have FreeBSD Journal. Issue 2 has come out. So I guess this is the bi-monthly FreeBSD Journal digital magazine, and this is now out. This month's issue includes all kinds of stuff about packages, poudriere, the PBI format, HWMPC, and journaled soft updates. So sounds like a variety of articles there.
Including one by you.
Here it says, one of those is by me, so that's cool. I guess it says in less than 2 months they've already gotten 1,000 subscribers to the magazine, so that's pretty cool.
That's good.
It's available. Yeah, that's good. It's a subscription. It's available on Google Play, iTunes, Amazon, etc. So you'll have to go sign up for it.
You can actually go to the website purchase a subscription, log in and get a PDF file now. So you can actually
Okay.
view it like in your browser or whatever on a FreeBSD machine.
Good deal.
Yes.
Good deal. Or any machine, I
Yeah,
guess.
any
it'll
machine.
do.
It's a PDF
Yeah,
file. So,
good deal.
even if you have some unsupported e-reader, if it'll read a PDF file, you can do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's pretty slick. And of course, you can always check back to our interview we did with the GNN a while back for more information about the journal.
Yep.
He talked about that for a bit. We'll have the link to that in the show notes.
They're already working on the next issue. I just actually submitted my article for that yesterday.
Oh, good deal.
And if you go to the FreeBSD Journal website, they have kind of a rundown of what topics they're planning on covering for each of the issues for this year. And it'd be interesting to see some feedback about what people would like to see in the magazine as well. You know, so far we're just writing what we want to talk about, but it's up to the readers what they want to hear about. So it'd be interesting to see some feedback on what they would like to see in the FreeBSD Journal.
Well, cool. Well, lastly, for our weekly news, we, of course, have a lot of discussion and, I guess, post-mortem on the OpenSSL Heartbleed bug this last week. Yeah. But, man, there's just a lot of stuff that happened this last week. A lot of people have been very busy, and who weren't expecting,
including both of us.
Yes.
Luckily, all of our servers are we're using an unaffected version of OpenSSL, so we didn't have to redo any of our SSL certificates.
Sure.
Because that would have been a giant pain.
Same in our case. All of our infrastructure was still on the older version, which wasn't susceptible, but still, it was just a lot of scrambling last second. Like, it's out there. You have to get this patch ASAP. Where's the patch? Yeah, a lot of stuff. So, but it's finally mostly all taken care of. We got a huge list of the responses from various security experts and projects, all the various BSD projects, and what their thoughts on it. So, there are a couple of the interesting ones here. I know OpenBSD's had a lot to say about it.
Tarsnap had their post about it and about why Tarsnap was not affected. Specifically, Colin uses some stuff he came up with himself, and basically it's using the same encryption and stuff that you would use with OpenSSL. Right? It's like RSA and AES to VTC or whatever, but kind of assembled by hand and removing all the complicated bits, including not trusting any certificate authority at all. It's just create this encrypted pipe and send the data over it. And because of that, they weren't affected by this. That's cool. And then Tor had some things to say about it. Or there was and then there was threads on the FreeBSD and NetBSD mailing lists. The open source security or open source software security mailing list had quite a bit and a lot of information originally on like a timeline. Since then, there's actually come up with a real timeline explaining when things happened and how things ended up going so sideways. The idea was that there was supposed to be responsible disclosure and everybody would have their patches ready and things would all happen on the Wednesday. But because of the way things worked out, everybody found out kind of chaotically on Monday instead. Yeah. Yep. And
I guess we mentioned PF Sense. They got a new release.
Yes,
that has,
they did their
fixing it now.
2.1.2 that fixes it. PHK wrote an article for Q, the ACM magazine, and also has a post over on the Varnish website talking about, a lot of the talk lately has been about how OpenSSL doesn't really get funding and it's kind of messy, and he writes about how the model he did for Varnish, how that works, and how open source can work for this. It just needs to be managed. Akamai had a blog post. Originally, they had claimed that they wrote a patch for OpenSSL that they had been using for a while that prevented this from being possible by storing the secret keys in a separate part of memory. But it turns out that their patch didn't actually work. So originally they weren't reissuing every customer's SSL certs, but now they are. And then, you mentioned that OpenBSD, there's been a lot of moves.
They even disabled Heartbeat and OpenSSL completely.
What they've actually done is imported OpenSSL 1.0.1G and have started a fork of it. And they're, for example, completely disabling the Heartbeat functionality that was the cause of this entirely, including, scorning the Internet Engineering Task Force for allowing that addition to the protocol to come in anyway. Over at Hacker News, they dug through the archives of the mailing list for the Internet Engineering Task Force and found when the feature was proposed, a couple of people objected. It's like, do we really need this? It seems like this is just more stuff that means
more potential problems down the road.
But it's always easier for the people that want it to push something through because all the people that want it will be active on the mailing list explaining why this needs to happen. And most of the people that be like, I don't think we need this, aren't necessarily going to be bothered enough to go, deal with it on the mailing list.
Sure.
And then as we mentioned on TechSnap, and I think we mentioned it here last week, I'm not sure, Ted Unangst, who's an OpenBSD developer who we've interviewed, he had 2 write-ups explaining some of the problems with OpenSSL, specifically how the mitigation countermeasures worked, how certain things OpenSSL were doing would stopped OpenBSD's mitigations for this type of attack from working. And then he actually did a write-up on his patch that actually fixed it finally. Originally when he found the mitigation countermeasure, they just had to disable their mitigation. But when he tried to disable the countermeasure, he found that it broke OpenSSL, but he didn't have time to fix it. Since then, he's gone and looked into why it doesn't work and what had to be changed to fix it, and he did that. And
we got a good quote from the OpenBSD list here as well. Given how trivial one-liner fixes such as number 2569 in the bug tracker have remained unfixed for 2.5 years, one can only assume that OpenSSL's bug trackers only used to park bugs, not fix them. Ouch.
There's quite a few like that. And there was another post, I think, on Slashdot talking about how, the summary in the change log for a change would say, fixed a typo, but it actually fixed a bug.
Okay.
And so it seems it seems there's some bad practices over there. And so, there's also been news that it's possible the NSA has been using Heartbleed since it's 2011, possibly. Also, while looking at OpenBSD, OpenSSL, the OpenBSD guys found another bug that they've patched that may allow an attacker to inject data from one connection into another encrypted connection.
Well, at least some good's coming out of this. It looks like people were finally, spending a lot of time with eyes on the code, figuring out what's going on here.
Yeah. So now that OpenBSD has decided to do their fork, they've started ripping out all the junk that they don't need, and all some of the bloat that makes it hard to maintain. So they've ripped out about 55,000 lines of code so far, specifically stuff for like running on VMS or Windows and, NetWare and things like that. And just like old stuff like doing DES encryption and all that.
Oh, yeah. Just need to do that cleanup, get rid of the cruft so you can see what the real problems are.
And one of the other things that people noticed was the OpenSSL code base, they don't have a style standard, or a strict one anyway, and so there's like different kinds of indentation all over the place, and like certain files where the indentation would just make your eyes bleed. It just doesn't make any sense. But normally white space changes like that are frowned upon just because it makes everybody have all these conflicts they have to resolve to commit the next patch and so on, right? To do a major white space change, you basically have to stop progress for a while and fix it. But OpenBSD is applying their kernel normal form style to the entire code base. So that'll make it much more readable. And FreshBSD, I have a link here to basically, because OpenBSD uses CVS, their commit logs are hard to browse. But FreshBSD compiles them in a way that it's easy to just read through the list of changes. And some of the funny messages, OpenBSD, doesn't take itself too seriously in the commit messages. Some of them are pretty funny. They're like sprinkling anti-VMS napalm on the code and things like that.
Well, some good will come out of this, hopefully in a year or so, or sooner rather than later. We'll all be running the OpenBSD forked version of OpenSSL. At some point, there may be a what OpenBSD would call the portable version of their version of libSSL, and this would make it possible to run their fork on FreeBSD and so on. Yeah, that sounds cool. Well, awesome. Well, we want to go ahead and, of course, mention this week's sponsor, the great IX Systems. So a couple things happened this last week we want to announce. So first of all, I guess they've partnered with FreeBSD News to expand some of the events and development coverage. So I guess Gerard Van Essen's been doing that?
Yes, and he was running out of free time to manage it, and so they've partnered up with IX, and IX will help generate more content for it, but Gerard will actually still maintain editorial control.
Sure. Okay. Well, that's really cool.
Yes.
Well, we're glad to hear that. Welcome to the family, Gerard.
Indeed.
Cool.
And then,
well, then
also they announced that they're starting the FreeNAS professional training courses. So if you want to help, if you want to be a consultant that helps people with their FreeNASs, or if your business where you work does a lot of FreeNAS and you want to get proper training so that you can be sure you're doing it right and so on. They've been announcing the availability of a series of online FreeNAS professional training courses that'll give members of the FreeNAS community access to focused instruction on how to get the most out of FreeNAS and ZFS, and ultimately administer and maintain complex FreeNAS systems. The first training course, Intro to FreeNAS and ZFS, introduces students to the web interface. They'll learn how to set up volumes and share data using the Apple File Sharing Protocol, NFS, CIFS, which is Samba. The ZFS portion of the training will cover enterprise features like caching, snapshots, replications. New users and experienced system administrators will learn everything needed to start with FreeNAS and set up ZFS for maximum performance and uptime.
Cool. I say it sounds like there's gonna be a lot of ZFS sprinkled into this.
Well,
so that,
yeah,
I mean, just on that alone,
kind of the core of FreeNAS, right? And yes, but there's not really that much training for ZFS out there. So even if you're using ZFS on vanilla FreeBSD, most of the FreeNAS stuff, except for the web interface, will apply. Most of it's if it's the concepts about getting the maximum performance and uptime, that'll apply to a vanilla FreeBSD too.
Cool. Well, of course, so in addition to these cool things IX is doing, they can still build you servers, right?
They make the FreeNAS Mini, which is a nice little machine that lets you get started. The new one is much better, has a low power Intel server Atom processor with 8 cores and
13 watts or something?
17, I think.
17? Yeah.
And it has the encryption offload, the AES-NI, so it can even handle encrypted disks at full speed. Small, low power, supports up to 32 gigs of ECC RAM, everything.
Yeah, pretty nice system. So they can build that all the way up to the 80 core monsters, which we've talked about in previous episodes.
Or if you check out their Facebook, they have some pictures of when they built like a 400 terabyte monster.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's just like a pallet load of servers and hard drives. And it's, they have everything that you could need, including, if you're, getting up in there, they have the TrueNAS, which is something like a FreeNAS, except for designed for an enterprise environment. So you have 2 or more 1U head units that have the disk controllers and the CPUs and the RAM, and then they connect to a number of storage chassis that are just full of the hard drives. And that gives you redundancy. So even if, the kernel crashes, or if, the power supply dies, or somehow one of the machines goes offline, the other one takes over control of the disks and no one notices. Your file server does not go down. Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Or, even if it's just you have to upgrade the kernel on one of them, right? You can do one, and once it's back up, do the other. And, that's the kind of thing you have to think about if you need real high availability.
And of course, we'll mention they build all these on the latest Intel processors. So, the latest, greatest, shiny stuff coming out of Intel.
Yeah, like
they
these,
can get a hold of that.
These are the new Intel server Atom processors, which I didn't even know were out until FreeNAS, until the FreeNAS Mini came out.
Yep. Well, very cool. So, of course, we want to mention the address.
ixsystems.com/BSD
Now, where you can go ahead and fill out the form there, download the free guide to purchasing a server for open source, or tell you the things to look for in a vendor, what you need to know, be aware of. And of course, they can get in touch with you, or you can get in touch with them there. and talk about what your specific needs are. And of course, they can build the system to suit your needs, not just something they happen to have laying on the back shelf. Yep. It'll be exactly what you need for your particular circumstances. We're joined today by Jim Brown. Glad to have you with us.
Yes, thank you.
So Jim, we're going to be talking about BSD certification
and
such
ready
today, but before we get into that, we'd like to ask the question, how did you first get involved in BSD? What was your initial experience?
I started in BSD in the mid-90s. I was working at a cash strap company, and I'd actually had some Unix background for quite some time, working with some AT&T Unix back in earlier Defense Department corporations, and then after brokering that into the public sector, which needed some additional Unix help. The cash strap nature sort of compressed everything down into the requirement of not being able to spend a lot of money, and so right around that same time, NetBSD and FreeBSD began to be more commercially available, or at least popularly available, and we were able to use those for things like DHCP and simple DNS and some terminal serving and stuff like that. So it ended up being a very easy introduction, and been trying to keep up with this stuff ever since then.
Sure.
A challenge.
So can you tell us what the BSD Certification Group is and how they came about?
Sure. So BSD Certification started in 2005. There was a meeting in New York City. I think it was the New York City BSD user group began or had a meeting in October, I believe, of that year. And there were some discussions at a restaurant afterwards in the dinner conversation about the need for certification in general in the BSD world. The Linux Professional Institute was still popular at that time, and it was quite noticeable that the BSD community did not have a certification effort going at that time. So there was a sort of a question went around the table, should we try to get something started? And a few people raised their hands, and that's how the whole thing got off the ground. Mm-hmm. Shortly after that, we incorporated as a not-for-profit in New Jersey, and began to put together the infrastructure that we needed, web server and web pages and stuff like that. But then after that, we found that a lot of people were initially interested in getting involved, had a big surge of interest right around that time. Everybody had an idea, of course, about what the certification should be, how many certifications, what type of certification, what it should be called, what the acronym should be, what the logo should look like. Yep. There was a lot of discussion in the early days. What we did find was that as we went along and sort of narrowed down the focus of what we wanted to do, one of the group suggested that we do what's called a job task analysis. A job task analysis is where you survey the practitioners of whatever this certification is that you're going to be doing, whether it's system administration like what we do, or if it's heart surgery, or radiology, or anything. You perform a job task analysis to try to identify what are the most important tasks that those people do on a day-to-day basis, and how frequently those tasks are performed. Mm-hmm. So we did a job task analysis. It was our first survey. I think it was in 2006. I think we put that survey out. We got a worldwide response. A lot of people were very eager to participate, and we got the job task analysis narrowed our focus down to what an entry-level BSD administrator needs to know, and how important the tasks are that they have, the frequency of the tasks that they're going to be doing, and the importance of those tasks. So that led us to be able to put together a requirements or an objectives document, and the objectives document forms the basis of the later exam. So that's how the whole thing works. Also, right around that time, we had a contact who was able to put us in touch with Dr. Sandra Dolan. She is a psychometrician. A psychometrician is a person who performs test analysis and the performance testing of people and so forth. And it's an educational specialty. And she was involved with the Linux Professional Institute as their psychometrician, and had just gotten out of that involvement with them, and she was more or less almost immediately available for us. So we engaged her, and she helped us she helped steer the creation of the exam towards the first launch of the exam, which was in 2008. Mm-hmm. We launched at the Scale conference in Los Angeles, 2008, and we've had a number of exams at conferences worldwide since then.
So that's how you take the exams at conferences, or do you have?
Well, initially, it's we started out as a paper and pencil exam because that's what we could get done. Mm-hmm. We've then began. There were a number of people that suggested, well, let's try to get something, put together where people could take it on the computer somehow. A lot of people wanted to just take it over the internet, something like that. But there are reasonable reasons why you can't do that. If you just put an exam online and you have somebody fill out a web page, you don't really know who actually submitted the answers to the exam. It could be the person that you had signed up to take the exam, or it could be their friend, or their mentor, for example, or somebody who's smarter than them that they just paid some money. So these are, that really happens. So we decided we would try to figure out a way to provide a computer-based exam, and we looked around at potential capabilities to do that. As you may know, some of the practitioners there, Pearson VUE, Prometric, some of these other organizations provide that kind of service, but frankly, they were out of our price range. It costs multiple thousands of dollars to begin an engagement with them, and then every time you make a change to your exam, they want more thousands of dollars to do that. So they were not a contender for us, and we did look at several different companies, not just those two, but several different companies. We did find one, Schroeder Measurement Technologies, that we were able to engage with, more reasonable price range. They do have a global footprint, perhaps not as large as the big boys in that space, but certainly well represented here in the U.S., also popular in Europe. They also have, I believe, at least a couple of Australian locations, and we're looking to see if they can turn up a location in Japan as well. So hopefully, we actually have that service available now. You can sign up to take an exam at their testing centers, walk right in, sit down and take the exam the same day if you feel that you're ready and ready to go. You don't have to wait for an exam in your neighborhood.
But you can do it in addition to the conferences as well? In addition to the conferences.
We still do that. The nice thing about the conference venues is that you can engage with people, work with them on the introduction to the exam. Sometimes people don't even know that the exam is being offered at the conference. Sometimes you get contacts of people who would like to have the exam in their neighborhood, and we do that as well. So if you're a university or a company, or maybe you're a large user group, and you would like to you'd like to sponsor an exam, we can certainly engage with you to help you to identify a proctor, someone who will sit down and go through the administration of the exam, and then get the exam given to however many people you can get get to take the exam in your area. And then from there, we bundle those exams up. We send them to our psychometrician. She does the scoring, and then the results are passed back to you. Sure. And if you pass, you get your certificate, and if you don't, you get our gratitude, and you get the fact that you can actually retake the exam pretty much any time you'd like to try again.
So there's two different exams now. Well, the second one's not quite ready, but could you
tell us
a bit about BSDP and what the difference is?
That's right. So I've been describing the BSD Associate exam. It's the exam that we started out with. It's 100 questions long and 90 minutes. So it's a multiple choice exam.
Covering different BSDs, I assume?
It covers all 4 major BSDs that are currently in use right now in the server area. We cover in alphabetical order. We cover Dragonfly BSD, FreeBSD, NetBSD, and OpenBSD. Perhaps we'll be able to support other BSDs as time permits in the future. But when we surveyed the community, those are the ones of the community had expressed the most interest in early on. So that's our main focus. As you mentioned, or as I mentioned earlier, that's the BSD Associate exam. The BSD Professional exam is the next exam in that sequence. It's been in development since at least 2009, so it's been a while. We again did a job task analysis. We surveyed the community on what a BSD professional should be able to know and do, and all of that. We developed an objectives document very similar to the one we have for the associate exam. And then we decided that the community had expressed an interest in having both a hands-on exam where you actually have to sit down and do something, as well as having a written portion of the exam. So you have both the conceptual knowledge and the applied knowledge that you can perform for the exam. So that exam is coming up. We hope to launch it in Ottawa in 2014 at the BSD CAN 2014 conference. What we're going to be doing is we're going to have a USB, a dedicated USB drive that we have the workstation software on. It's a customized PCBSD system that we've developed. The practitioner or the candidate will sit down at this customized workstation, and they'll work through some tasks in order on a task sheet that we give them. And then once they're done with that, we have some automated scripts that will score their results. We're focusing in the lab on the person's ability to perform results, not necessarily a specific set of hardware or software. We want to know, can you provide a service? So, one of the questions might be something similar to, can you provide the foobar service? And can you set up a foobar server? And in that case, all we want to know is, were you successful in setting up the server? We don't care if you use, Millennium foobar software or Proctanium foobar software or Unobtainium foobar or whatever it is, whatever software you want to use, that's up to you on the exam. But that's the idea. That's the idea.
Cool. So how's the metrics looking for it right now? How many people have signed up or have taken the exam? And
well, we need, this is a beta exam that'll be offered in Canada. We need to get about 100 practitioners that are going to take the exam before it's officially released.
Sure.
The reason for the round number of about 100 is that our psychometrician tells us that she can get enough results to do analysis on how well different people have scored, and then help us set a passing and failing score, that dividing line between who passes and who fails, with about 100 results. So we need to get about 100 people to take the exam so that we can move into that official launch at some point, maybe 2015, 2014 BSD can. I'm not sure when that will happen, but the beta will open definitely in BSD can in 2014 in Ottawa.
Cool. How long did it take you for the beta of the BSD exam, the written one?
That took several months. It's easier.
I took the beta at my college when I was.
There you go. So it's actually easier to do to do that one because all we needed to do is provide 100 people in a room, a score sheet. Yeah. Whereas here we're going to have to provide them with a workstation, which is set up to do that. So I think we're going to have. We hope to get a large turnout in Ottawa. And I encourage anybody who's listening, if you think you have the chops for putting together your BSD professional, let us know, sign up, and we'll see if we can get you right on the exam in Ottawa.
We'll have to twist some people's arms to make sure they take it. Well, I know, like, when I signed up to take the BSD A exam in Ottawa a couple of years ago, I was surprised at the people I was talking to that people I would have considered to be better at BSD than me were afraid to take the exam because they thought they might fail.
We've heard that in several cases, and it's kind of surprising. I think that a lot of people use BSD and they're very familiar and comfortable with it, and they find that every time they go to a conference, they're always learning something new, and there's more that they get exposed to in the BSD world. So there is that sort of personal issue of I might not be good enough to actually get this done. But there are a number of people who pass. I assume you passed. I don't remember the scoring on that. But even if you fail, you can take the exam again, and you have that ability to demonstrate that you are proficient in BSD system administration.
Well, I remember when Drew ran the exam at my college, part of it was they also wanted to get people that wouldn't pass to take the exam, so they would have that pool. Be able to tell the difference between someone that knew what they were doing and someone who didn't.
That's essential, and that goes to our psychometrician. Then again, analyzing those results, she's been really spectacular in helping us get this thing off the ground. Can't thank her enough. Well, we do pay her. She is our paid employee, or contractor, I guess I should say. But she has been extremely helpful in getting it move forward.
So 2 questions. How much does it cost to take, say, the BSDA, and how would you go about renewing it? Say, is there an expiration on it, or?
So let's do cost first. A key goal from the beginning of our certification effort was to make the exam globally affordable. That means that if you live in Kuala Lumpur and you want to take the BSD exam and you have a situation where you don't have a job and maybe you don't have a lot of money at your disposal, we wanted to make the exam available to you at a reasonable price. If you live in Ohio or New York City, and again you have that dollar crunch or that money crunch, it's affordable to almost anyone. The price for the BSDA exam started out at $75 for the paper and pencil exam. We did have to raise the price for the online exam because we're partnering with SMT Technologies, and we're actually paying them to use their testing center. So it's $150 at the testing center. It's $75 at conferences and so forth for the written version. And we've held the line on prices since we started, and we hope to do that for some time yet. We haven't figured out how much to charge yet for the BSD Professional. I think it will necessarily be more. We have to rent the equipment in order to the workstations and so forth that we're going to use.
Transport them.
Yeah. Somebody has to bring them to the location. Somebody has to set up and all that. So there's more cost involved. But we do want to make it affordable, and that's a key goal in the sense that we're not really in this to, make a lot of money and put money in our pockets. We're in this to provide a service to the BSD community because we feel it's necessary and important.
Yeah, I don't. Most certifications are ridiculously expensive.
Yes. Ridiculously expensive, and fortunately, you're getting a very good quality product at a very competitive cost.
Cool. How about the renewals then?
Renewals. So the renewals, yes. Another key goal of our program is to eventually achieve what's called accreditation by the American National Standards Institute, or ANSI. ANSI has an accreditation program for what's called personnel certifications. It's ANSI 17024. That's the name of the standard that's involved. And the standard is a standard for accrediting certification programs, just like ours. So a certification program has to meet certain standards that ANSI has set up. And one of those standards is that your certification program has to have a renewal period. Mm-hmm. Our renewal period is 5 years from the date of the certification. You don't necessarily have to retake the exam. You can have, there are an education credit system that we've put together. So if you're already working in the field and you can demonstrate that, you can get, I think they're called BSD renewal units, BRUs. But anyway, those can be applied, and you can put forth your thing for that and renew your certification that way as well.
Oh, cool.
So that's one requirement for the ANSI 17024. There's a number of them. The reason why we think that's important is because if we can achieve that accreditation, that will open the door for us to enter U.S. government markets and also international markets, because any organization who has an ANSI 17024 accredited program is able to offer that program to sister countries around the world. So, for example, and I happen to know this, some of the SANS courses for certifications are ANSI accredited, and you'll see the little ANSI stamp on the bottom of their certifications. Well, that means that program is accredited around the world with those sister countries. So we think we have a very good chance of achieving ANSI accreditation, and as soon as our program matures a little bit more, we're gonna go ahead and do that.
Great. Have anything else you'd like to tell us about certification? Or?
I expect to see you sitting at the workstation for the BSD Professional.
I expect.
All right, well, that's
I'll
good.
be happy to beta test it too at Canada.
Well, there you go. And I hope every one of our listeners will come take a chance at the BSD Professional exam at a conference near you in the near future. If not BSD can, maybe the next one.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Jim.
It's a pleasure, gentlemen. I really appreciate the time to come and explain the BSD certification group.
In this week's tutorial, we're going to be showing you how to build binary packages on OpenBSD. So in an earlier tutorial, of course, we've showed you how to build binary FreeBSD packages en masse to create your own repo. So this is basically an OpenBSD version of that, using a tool called DPD, or DPB, Distributed Port Builds. Got to get those right. It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to pronounce than poudriere, so that is true. While it lacks a few of the features that poudriere has, it is the tool for doing bulk builds of OpenBSD binary packages. Yep. As was the case with the poudriere tutorial, it's recommended to do this on a system with a fairly powerful CPU and a decent amount of RAM. And you pretty much start out the same way. We're going to be grabbing a fresh ports tree.
Yep. So we'll do a CVS checkout of the OpenBSD ports tree. That obviously takes a while. So I've already done that, and we'll just, cooking show that. Because otherwise we'll be here for like an hour while it checks out.
Sure.
So if we go to our ports tree, see it's all good. You can use CVS to update that. If I wanted to pick up changes since yesterday, I could do that. And so on. And then if you want, so the distributed package building tool is actually in the ports tree. It's in a section called infrastructure, and they have the binaries there. Well, it's a shell script, I think. But so anyway, we can use just make a little symbolic link and throw that into our user local bin, or you could modify your path to cover ports infrastructure bin, but that might not be what you want.
Sure.
So DBD has its man page, and it kind of explains how it works and what the commands are. Unlike poudriere, it's not going to use jails because OpenBSD doesn't have jails. And, poudriere is kind of a shift in focus from the old way FreeBSD built packages. So instead of trying to do all the complicated things to distribute the load across a bunch of machines to make it faster, it was let's get the most out of one really fast machine instead.
Sure. More cores.
Yeah. Well, on OpenBSD, they build for a lot of stranger architectures, and they never cross-build. They always build on the native platform. So being able to build using a bunch of smaller machines is actually the only option for some of their stuff, and that's why they kept up with the DBD style. Also, now they have the signing infrastructure for their packages. So if you want to sign all the packages you're making, you'll need to set up a key pair. So we have the commands in the tutorial for that. So this uses signify, and it'll generate a new key pair, and it'll save your secret and public into etc signify. And then if you want to build your packages with that, we can add to our etcmk.conf. The command's a little too long to fit on the screen, but basically we added signing parameters equals -s signify, and then here's the secret key. And so that will sign each package as we make it with that key. And then all you have to do is copy the openbsd.pub file to each of your client machines, and then they will be able to verify the packages.
Cool.
So now if we want to make a list of the packages we want to compile, you can compile, say, like, Vim or rsync and IRSSI or whatever packages you want to build in your repo. Then we can start the building. In the tutorial, it also covers editing your login.conf to change some process limits. By default, in 5.5 anyway, the maximum amount of RAM that an individual process can take is like 512 megs, and if you're compiling some stuff, you might need more than that.
So eat up.
So you can increase the size of those. But I've already done that, and it'll take too long to show it. So then we get to actually building. So the first thing we want to do is empty out the packages I built already. So we'll just delete the packages directory there. And then we will create a packages directory in htdocs, because we're going to expose our packages via a web server so that our other machines on the network can get them. And so we'll just symlink our the packages directory to where the packages are going to get generated. So now the ports tree will drop its packages into our htdocs directory. And then all we have to do is use our DPB, which will compile, and we say, compile all these, and we give it a list. And so it's deleting all the old stuff, and now it's going to go through the process, and it just compiled everything there. And so now if we look at our user ports packages directory, we see that it compiled lots of fun stuff for us. I had Vim on the list originally, but it was taking too long. So there's quite a few dependencies in here. But we can see the stuff we actually wanted is in here. Right? There's your rsync and its dependencies like libviconf and so on. And then everything else you wanted. So now that we have our packages, what we want to do is set up our web server. So if we edit our rc.conf.local, we can add nginx. And now when we, and then we also edit our nginx.conf, and we'll enable the auto index so that we'll be able to browse the list of packages. And then we can start the server. And then if I got this set up right, then we can browse our list of, oops. You can see our list of packages now.
That's almost too easy.
Yep. And then if we want to use those, if we just set our package path, and then when we do package add rsync, then we're good to go.
Cool.
Yeah, I built it without the Signify stuff, so that's why it says unsigned. But if you had followed the tutorial, yours would have signed the package and you would have not got that message there. But there, now you have rsync. And you have it for all your machines that are i386 or whatever architecture you built on.
Nice.
And that's all it takes to build packages.
Cool. Okay.
Very similar.
Well, thank you very much, Alan. And we'll be back in just a moment with our weekly news roundup. We're back with our weekly news roundup. We're going to go through quickly some of the notables from the last week. So what we got first here about Signify?
Somebody's made a portable version of Signify. Back in episode 23, we talked with Ted Unangst, who had built the Signify utility. And then just in today's tutorial, we showed you how to use it to sign your packages on OpenBSD. But now someone on GitHub has created a portable version of Signify that you can use on other operating systems to sign whatever you want. Also, it allows you to verify your OpenBSD sets ahead of time. So if, for example, OpenBSD's next version is going to be signed, but if you're upgrading from the old version that doesn't have the public key or the signing tools, how do you check to make your first upgrade? Well, once you're upgraded, then every version will know, will have the trust chain to check the next version. But how do you get started? How do you bootstrap? So this will allow you to compile Signify on some other machine that maybe isn't OpenBSD and verify your OpenBSD sets before you install them.
Oh, nice.
But it could. It looks like it should also be able to be used for other projects to Signify other things. Yeah, or other BSD projects could adopt this and replace GPG and SH256 hashes for their download verification as well.
And we get a lot of stuff from OpenBSD. Those guys, just keep up the good work. You guys are awesome.
One of the ones I didn't realize that the netcat in FreeBSD came from OpenBSD, and so there was a bug in the man page. And so to fix it, I fixed it in OpenBSD, and then FreeBSD will pull it in eventually. It was interesting to see how quick I could get the fix into OpenBSD. But yeah, a lot of good stuff comes out of OpenBSD.
Cool.
Speaking of that,
next up, we want to update you guys on some of the foundation goals and updates. So of course, there's a couple foundations out there. First up, we'll talk about OpenBSD Foundation has reached their 2014 goal of $100,000.
$150,000.
Wow. Oh, 150. Yep. Okay. Update that in the notes here.
That was
100.
They
that's really cool though.
I think in 2013 they only raised like 30,000 or something, so 150,000 is a big change for them.
Yeah, definitely. Well, cool. You can of course check out, we'll have a link here in the show notes where you can take a look at some of their activities and goals to see how they're going to be spending some of that money, what it's going towards. And that funding goes to OpenSSH, which every system uses.
Yes, so, everybody in the world uses OpenSSH.
Yeah. So that's helping everybody.
Exactly.
Now, also, the FreeBSD Foundation has kicked off their spring fundraising campaign. So we're going to have a link here. You can check that out. There's a lot of activities and goals to read through, some of the things they're looking to raise money for. So, of course, we just want to encourage you, go ahead and support your favorite BSD, whichever one it is. So they continue to keep making, or all of them, yeah. If you got if you got some money to spread around, all of them would be good. But yeah, I mean, they need that money to be able to fund some projects and just to continue to improve the awesome code that we all run on so many devices nowadays.
Yeah, but also just the number of contributors can actually get more donations. Or if a company's considering using a product or building a product based on FreeBSD or OpenBSD, seeing that number of contributors, a number of people donating money makes a difference. So if you only have $20 to donate, maybe give 10 to FreeBSD and 10 to OpenBSD, just so that you count as 2 people.
Yeah, for sure. It shows interest in activity.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just as important.
Exactly.
Cool. Okay. Well, it looks like we only had one extra article this week, so just typical PCBSD Weekly Digest. Last week, we fixed a PBI runtime stability problem. Decreases load times. If anybody's running on 10.01, you will notice there is a new update center that's experimental in the control panel. That's getting a lot of development improvements. We hope to use that to replace all of our other updating mechanisms. So we have kind of a one-stop shop for updating everything from system to packages, security updates, etc. So that's getting some work. And you can follow along with that in our GitHub repo. And of course, lots of miscellaneous bug fixes and updates. Let's see. Oh, one thing that didn't make it in the weekly digest, I'll give you a sneak peek. We ported over a preload daemon from Linux, which basically it's an adaptive read-ahead daemon and monitors what applications you like to use a lot and can make sure that those stay in unused memory so that next time you run them, they're quick.
So Firefox will be snappy?
Cool. Yeah, Firefox is snappy, and it's kind of cool because it saves state when you reboot, so it'll remember across reboots. So when services start up, it's actually already caching stuff before you even get to the login prompt.
So get to the login prompt sooner.
Yeah, you get to the login prompt sooner, and then when you do log in, KDE or Firefox or all your apps just start. So it's pretty cool.
Nice.
So that just went in early this week, so that will be cool, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in the weekly digest this Friday on our blog, which is just at blog.pcbsd.org. So check that out. But cool, that's our weekly news roundup. We're going to be back in a moment with feedback and questions from you guys in the audience. Okay, we're back with our feedback and questions. So first up, we got something we found or was sent over to us from Reddit, actually. So not directly to us, but we want to throw our 2 cents in on it. So first up, the writer basically says he's not sure where else to post this, but he wants to show his programming friends and non-programming friends why he likes BSD and why they should consider using it. So he's trying to think of stuff that's non-subjective, so he needs a little help finding stuff to show him that BSD is a good operating system kernel. They're probably going to compare it to, say, Linux or Windows, so that's to be expected. Here's the list he came up with so far. So ZFS for some of the BSDs, BSD license being a bit laxer, appeals to more budding programmers, even more mature programmers. Jails are very appealing for obvious reasons. Security's better as far as he knows. He needs things to back that up with. Performance is more or less the same, which again, he's asking if there's any benchmarks or comparisons we can point him to. So he's just asking what are other reasons why folks use BSD. So I'll let you go first.
For FreeBSD, one of the first ones is that because it's designed as an entire operating system rather than a kernel, some packages, and a userland, and then slap them together, is that it was designed as a programming environment, right? It was everything you need to start developing is already there. You can add stuff that, and stuff that is preferential and so on. But you're going to have the compilers and the tool chain, everything you need to start building stuff already there. Most Linux distros, half the time you don't even have a compiler when you install the system. So that has some advantages.
Sure.
And just separating that stuff so that you can, easily tell what's a library that comes with the operating system versus what's something I have to add and that. The ports tree is just really nice for seeing how software is actually packaged up, right? It's nice to just get binary packages, but if you're trying to build your application, seeing how that actually happens with the ports tree can be very beneficial.
Well, the ports makes it easy too. Like when I run into a bug, I was debugging something in Chrome the other day. So I just go hit ports. I can do make extract on the port, and I get all the source code for Chrome, and I can now go hunt through it and figure out where my problem is.
And then you
occurring.
can see the patches that the FreeBSD specific patches that come for it, and then you can do make patch, and it'll apply them, and you can see what difference that makes. And
That's right.
you know, you can. There are some times when I've needed an application, but I didn't want to install it. So you make compile it, but you don't do make install, and then you just go to that working directory and try it out for a minute, and then make clean, and it all goes away.
See if it meets your needs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely handy. The ports tree, their port system is pretty cool, and of course packages are great on top of that. You know, FreeBSD is what I use as well. So ZFS, you know, just enables a lot of cool stuff that we can do for desktops, laptops, workstations. Jails, of course, are a biggie.
Yes.
I love having PF protecting my desktop.
But jails are useful just temporary environments. It's like a virtual machine, except for it takes even less time to spin up.
Sure.
And they take less space, and they have no CPU overhead at all.
And, you know, one thing a lot of people, you know, some people are on either side of the fence on, but the license, you know, for me, a smaller, simpler license is better.
Yes.
You know,
when you don't need a lawyer to read it.
Yeah. I don't have to pay somebody $100 an hour to tell me whether I'm complying with it. I can look at that and go, I got that, you know. And I've done this at talks at Linux shows before, where I'll show the BSD license on screen and then compare it to like the GPL3, and how through history the BSD license has gotten shorter. Like we've gone from 4 clauses down to 3, down to 2, whereas the GPL is like boom, expanding. So, you know, there's something to be said for keeping it simple and making it more free in that sense.
Especially if you're going to build something on top of it.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people, it could be something you're building personally, it could be business, etc. But again, less complexity is a good thing in my mind. So anything else you want to add to
not that I can think of, especially.
Okay, good deal.
But I'm sure everybody that's watching has lots of ideas, so they can go and add those.
Well, yeah, we'll have the link in the show notes. So go to Reddit, add your comments to that as well, so he'll get plenty of answers. So I guess you got the next one here from Brad.
Yes, he says he's currently a Debian Linux user, and he wants to make the leap into BSD after hearing about ZFS. However, he doesn't have much experience with it, and he says, for someone coming from the Linux world, is there any recommended reading for somebody that doesn't know anything about ZFS? Well, as I mentioned earlier, actually, the first volume of the FreeBSD journal has an article I wrote, about 7 pages, that just explains an overview of what ZFS is and why it is good. That's a good start. There's also a work in progress of a ZFS chapter of the FreeBSD handbook that will walk you through everything you need to know about administering it. That's not on the website yet. It's on my website because it's not finished yet, but it should be finished fairly soon, and that'll be in the handbook that way as well. And so that's a great place to start with FreeBSD is freebsd.org/handbook. And it's ridiculous. Like the table of contents, when printed out as a Word doc or something, is like 60 pages. And that's just the table of contents.
Yep.
It's everything you could ever need to know about anything. And then he says, second question is, he had a Debian file server that's getting old. In particular, he says it's a 2 gigahertz Pentium 4 with 2 gigs of RAM and 2 SATA ports, one with an 80 gig drive and one with a 1.5 terabyte drive. The 80 gig has the OS, and the 1.5 terabyte has the storage. And then he says he wants to pull those out and put 2 3 terabyte drives, and then use like a 16 gigabyte thumb drive for the OS. The first problem there is with hardware that old, the BIOS might not support disks larger than 2 terabytes. Also, I don't know if a Pentium 4 can do GPT. Probably not.
Yeah, probably
and
not.
so it won't. The partition table that the BIOS supports won't be able to do a partition larger than 2 terabytes. And also, that processor is 32-bit only. And so you won't be able to address more than about 3 gigabytes of RAM. And with all those factors put together, you really don't want to try to run ZFS on 32-bit.
Sure.
And then encryption would be horribly slow on a Pentium 4 because it doesn't have the AES new instruction encryption offload to do it in the hardware. And so, yeah, that piece of hardware is not a good idea to build a new ZFS-based file server. You could put FreeNAS on it and use the 1.5 terabyte drive, or maybe get a second one and mirror the two or something. But going larger than 2 terabyte drives and that motherboard probably won't be possible. And also the MBR requirement won't fit. And the 32-bit means probably should avoid ZFS. So
which kind of defeats the purpose of doing this in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So.
Maybe you should look at a FreeNAS Mini.
A FreeNAS Mini or some kind of newer box. I mean, you can build a lower end machine for not a whole lot of money.
Yeah,
it's and 64-bit.
Yeah, it's tempting to keep
8 gigs of memory in it. You know,
it's tempting to keep using that old Pentium 4, but the power that Pentium 4 is just ridiculous. And that's a single core machine. You're not going to get performance out of it. And if you want to do encryption, it's basically not an option on a Pentium 4.
Sure. All right, well, good. I hope you are able to answer Brad's question there.
Yep.
So next up from Shaul asking about PCBSD hardware. So he said he was looking to install PCBSD 10, or he did install it on a Pentium dual core with 4 gigabytes of DDR2, and he was running into some slow performance. He says taking 2 minutes for seeing D message. Wow, that is pretty slow. So he's asking if it does have higher requirements like an i3 or i5 with DDR3.
Well, when he says he's going that long before he sees D message,
kernel,
like
or typing in D message.
Yeah, that's a little unclear. If it's pausing for a long time before that suggests something else going strange.
Yeah,
and it says PCBSD, so like, is this the after grub? It just sits there for a while, or what?
It sits there. If that's the case, there was a bug with that on the original 10.0 release. Go ahead and grab a newer copy of 10.01 off our website. That fixed the hanging bug there, where it would take a while for it would bring up the kernel.
Well, so I think that's what he's running into. Yeah, that was a bug and it's fixed.
Yeah. So that should be fixed. So he says he's going to be giving a talk to the Vancouver Linux users group about what BSD is. He wanted to do an install demo of OpenBSD, covering some various BSD-specific tech and features. He wanted to basically know whether you can suggest PCBSD to anybody who's running on older systems. So, yeah, I mean, there's no reason why you can't. So if you're running on if some of these guys are running on Core 2 Duos, maybe don't put the big KDE or KDE on there.
Well, a Core 2 Duo should still be fine for KDE.
It does it. Yeah, it's not horrible. But I mean, if
the problem is going anything older, going any older than a Core 2 Duo is that PCBSD is 64-bit only.
Yes. So. Generally, it runs fine. I mean, I've got it running on some older dual cores here, and I've not had any problems with it. I just run XFCE or LXD as the window manager, and it stays pretty snappy. I mean, and Firefox runs the same as it would on a Linux. It's just Firefox. So,
but yeah, PCBSD will be perfectly fine on any i-series processor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
But yeah, even a Core 2 Duo or Core 2 Quad would be fine as long as they're 64-bit.
Yep. For sure. Yeah, and 4 gigabytes of memory, more than enough. You'll be in good shape.
Yep.
Well, cool. Well, again, if that wasn't what you're running into, then go ahead and let us know. Otherwise, grab 10.01 and give that one a whirl. That should fix the delay or stall bug you were seeing there. Cool. Okay, next up, who do we have?
iGibbs is part of that. He loaded NetBSD on a machine to use as a file backup server. And he says the machine has 2 drives, but when he installed NetBSD, it only set up one of the drives because that's basically what the installer does. And he says, how can he get the other drive to be formatted and usable from the command line? He doesn't know where on the file system the drive is mounted. So when you install and it only uses the disk you indicate, it's actually not using the second disk at all, so it's not mounted. So you have to find the device name, which will be in your D message or whatever, and then you'll have to partition it and format it, and then you decide where the mount point is going to be and put it in your etcfs tab.
Sure.
We actually got a follow-up email from iGibbs saying that he tried FreeBSD and was able to, in the installer, you can select multiple drives and do that. But yeah, it's the NetBSD instructions will, I'm sure, have a section on adding a disk. If not, the FreeBSD handbook has a section on adding new disks and how to deal with that.
Okay. Well, cool. Yep. So next up, We have an anonymous comment. Okay, that's fine if you don't want your name shared. So he said, even though he's a beginner, he finds the show very interesting and also manages to learn some stuff from us. Some of it's over his head. That's fine. Some of it's over my head too, especially when we get some of these guests on here talking about encryption.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But anyway, here's his question. He says he wants to run a web server, possibly Nginx, and a mail server. Doesn't know which package. There's a variety of ones out there, but I use Postfix and Dovecot and whatnot. Cool. But with some other services such as FTP, or he's asking if he needs to install anything. No, you can run that out of the base. Something like you'd get from a hosting company. He's not completely comfortable with the command line. He's wondering if there's enough tools in the GUI on PCBSD that'll let you build such a system. And once such a system is set up, can I manage it remotely with graphical interface, not through shell? So good news, yes, you can do all of that. So graphically, in the control panel, we have Package Manager, which will let you install everything from Nginx to Dovecot to IMAP. Whatever you need, anything in the port tree will be pretty much available there. Mm-hmm. So you can graphically install that, manage it, and you update it all graphically. You don't even have to touch the command prompt if you're not comfortable.
Yep. And with Warden, don't you have like an Apache template jail or something? Yeah.
So in the Warden, if you create a jail, say you don't want to run these on the host, but in a jail environment, it'll do the same thing. It'll let you launch the graphical package manager and say, I want Apache, and it'll splat that in there with kind of like a lamp stack type thing, where it'll give you everything you need to get up and running on an Apache system. I've used that to deploy some WordPress sites for people. It's pretty easy. So yeah, you can do all that, whether it be jail or right on the host. And then as far as getting in to manage it, in the control panel again, under, let me see here, login manager, I believe it is, there's a remote access option that'll turn on VNC. So if you want a VNC in, you can. It'll VNC you right to the login prompt, or the login GUI in this case. And then you can just log in and manage the box and log out when you're finished and administrate it all graphically. So that is entirely possible.
That doesn't do the like Nginx config file though, right?
Well, what? The VNC stuff?
No, you don't have a graphical tool for managing the web server itself. But
No. There's a graphical tool for services. So what'll happen is we have a front end basically to etcrc.conf. So we can say, okay, enable Apache or MySQL or whatever. But yeah, if you're going to set up Nginx, you're still going to have to set up your own nginx.conf file.
Yeah, but you can.
If you're doing it graphically, you can do it with kwrite and everything else. If you don't know Edit or VI or Pico or any of those things.
Yeah. So. Like he's a little vague about what he's after. If he just wants to run his own website, that'll be fine. If he means actually being kind of having a hosting platform, then that's a little different. But I don't think that's what he's after, because he's mentioning, doing PCBSD and stuff. And it sounds like he just wants to have the environment he gets from his web hosting company on his own computer. Yeah. And so, you can just enable, a web server, whether that's Apache or Nginx, and FTP, and a mail server up on your thing. But yeah, there's... depending on the things you use, there may be tools to manage it. Like, I don't know if anybody still uses it, but there's Webmin, which gives you a web interface to manage. I know it does Apache. I don't know if
it's still in the ports tree.
Yeah, it's still there. I don't know if they have a module for Nginx. I'm sure they do, actually. But depending on the mail server, they'll also have a module there, so that you'll be able to manage your mail accounts and stuff with a web interface. Or some of the... I think Postfix has like a Postfix admin script.
Yeah, Postfix admin you can use, which will let you set up all your domains and email tables and whatnot.
Yeah, so there are all the tools are there. They're just not, you have to pick which one you want because there's so many choices.
Yeah. And those will all be available in the graphical package utility. You can just search if you're not quite sure what it is. Of course, a great site is freshports.org, where you can pretty much search for everything, even by descriptions, and find what's available. Once you find it there, just go into the package manager and say, that's what I want.
Yep.
Cool. Well, hopefully that works for you. Let us know how that turns out if you have any more questions about it. So that's the end of our feedback and questions for the week. So, of course, we want to mention the tutorials are going to be posted in their entirety at bsdnow.tv. There's a couple new ones on the site that we're going to be covering in future episodes, so you get a little bit of a sneak preview of what's upcoming. Also, you can send your questions, comments, show ideas or topics, or maybe stories you want mentioned on the show to feedback at bsdnow.tv. That's the only place we monitor, so please try and send stuff there if you want us to see it. If you have something cool to talk about, or if you'd like to come on for an interview, go ahead and shoot us an email at that address so we can get in touch with you and arrange that.
Yep.
Also, tutorial requests. So if you have something interesting that you'd like to see how to do it, or you think the community might be interested in hearing about it, go ahead and send that in as well. Let us know what tutorial items you think would be neat to feature on an upcoming episode. And also, we want to mention, if you're in or around Colorado in the United States, there's a brand new BSD users group that was just formed and announced, and the address is on the show notes here, cobug.org.
Yep.
They'll be having meetings, doing tutorials, so check out their site. And also, if you have a local bug you'd like us to mention, get the word out about, go ahead and let us know, so we can mention that on a future show.
There's the NYC bug, a nice bug that they held the NYC BSD Con that we provided videos from as well. So yeah, there's quite a few of them, and they're definitely worth checking out. I wish there was one near me.
Yeah, me too. Nothing here locally, unfortunately. Yeah. But okay, cool. And
but
as usual, you
can see, somebody in Colorado was tired of there not being one and created one. So
made one. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So yeah, let us know how that goes. If you guys have any interesting speakers or anything cool that you record, let us know so we can mention that on the show.
For sure.
And of course, that goes with all the other bugs as well. So, of course, you can watch this live Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. So if you'd like to see how we make the show and all the stuff that happens in between the segments before they're cut up and made all pretty for the final thing, you can go ahead and check it out then. And we'll be glad to have you watching along while we're doing this. And we'll look forward to having you back next week, same time.